Okay, I got it, guys. I figured it out. I figured out what this niche little phrase is going to be that we're going to use. And before I explain it to you, I want to show you my thought process, my raw, unfiltered thought process 2 nights ago when I was trying to come up with a phrase to encapsulate this niche little thought and the process my retarded brain kind of goes through. But yeah, I'm going to show you guys the clip, show you guys my raw process of trying to come up with this, and then we'll come back to here and I'm going to tell you what I was able to find through Google AI. Yeah, I had to use AI because it turns out that there is a word for this very niche thing, because it is more specific than just midwit fatigue. So I want to stop any commenters in their tracks early. I feel like a lot of people would be quick to call this midwit fatigue, but it's a bit more specific than that. While yes, midwits would tend to behave in this manner, it's a bit more specific. It's a more specific type of fatigue. And I really wanted to hone in on this. So I was able to find something using Google AI. Turns out there is a term for it. It doesn't roll off the tongue very well. So I found another reference actually from fucking Plato, which is crazy. And I just thought it was so funny that Plato had identified this similar concept too, and he probably was probably trying to think of a term for this as well. Yeah, that's funny. Anyway, so yeah, let's roll the clip and then we'll come back to here and I'll tell you what the term is. I just got a random fleeting neurodivergent autistic thought before bed that I wanted to articulate before I went to sleep. And I'm trying to think of a term that we can use to quickly encapsulate this and commonly refer to it as. But you know when somebody tries to counter a point you're making, like let's say you have some contrarian opinion on something and they counter you with the general consensus, or even it doesn't have to be the general consensus, but some argument that you've already reviewed. Like you've already gone through the passage, you've already spent time in that area, like reviewing that, and you've came across new ideas, and you've ultimately decided that the new ideas that you were exposed to were superior to the former. And I'm trying to think of a word that encapsulates that fatigue when someone who hasn't been exposed to the new contrarian idea that you're trying to articulate, they are combating you instead of just being open-minded and acknowledging that you've explored both avenues already. They've only explored one avenue. They've only explored the general consensus avenue, for example. And you have been through that general consensus avenue, or whatever their opinion is. Like you've already been through that. You've explored that already to all of its depths. And consequently, you've explored the new idea and you've compared and contrasted the two ideas. And here comes along some fucking midwit who hasn't been exposed to the new idea, who's just regurgitating the former idea. And it's like, dude, just, I know that. I know that's what you're thinking. I know that's the general consensus. I know, of course, like, just stop arguing. I'm aware of that point. I acknowledge that the general consensus feels that way. But I acknowledge that and I'm trying to articulate something new. I found a different idea that I've already explored the former idea, and now this new idea, I've compared and contrasted them, and seeing the juxtaposition of them, I've said, okay, the new idea makes more sense. And then there's this guy, the fucking midwit, who isn't even giving the new idea a chance. Like he's just saying, no, that's not how it works. It goes like this. And then they state the general consensus idea, which you've already been aware of. You've compared and contrasted that general consensus idea already. And it's so fatiguing. It's so annoying. Like, look, I try to practice stoicism, so I try my hardest not to get actually emotional about this. But it is fatiguing a little bit, and it's something that I see all the time in YouTube comments. I wish there was a way to encapsulate this. Like, I'm trying to think of a term. I don't have the term right now, but maybe by the time I wake up tomorrow, I'll have a name for what to call this. Because I like to do that. I like to come up with little terms that encapsulate relatable things that we all kind of think about. Not all people, but us on this channel. Us retards. We have a lot of these weird thoughts. And it'd be nice to just like encapsulate them into like a little phrase that we could always refer back to. So yeah, I'm trying to think of a good one for this. The phrase would probably involve the word fatigue, because it's fatiguing when someone is not open-minded to the new idea and they just restate the general consensus idea that you've already been aware of. It's fatiguing. But what fatigue? Something fatigue. I don't know. So, yes, I did have to use Google AI to help me with this one. After trying for a whole day yesterday, trying to come up with something, I could not. So while I was taking a shit earlier, I decided to just look this up on Google AI, and I explained it in the most niche possible way, and Google AI was actually able to comprehend what I was getting at. So first, Google AI gave some terms that explain the process of what's going on, not the fatigue and reaction to the process, which is the word I was looking for, but it first gives a couple phrases to explain people's like ignorance of it. So remember, like I was trying to come up with a word to express my fatigue of that particular ignorance. So I'll read what Google put out. The most precise term for this specific exhaustion is epistemic wall banging, while the psychological phenomenon you are describing is known as Semi-Lewis reflex. I don't know if I pronounced it right or wrong. I'm retarded. Remember, guys, bear with me. Or paradigm inertia. So Semi-Lewis reflex or paradigm inertia, that's the problem. And then my fatigue of that problem is the word that I was trying to come up with. And it turns out it does exist. It's called epistemic wall banging. So I'll go through the key concepts first. So the Semi-Lewis reflex, the automatic knee-jerk reaction of new knowledge or a superior insight because it contradicts established consensus and traditional norms. So just imagine like you explaining to a midwit that looks are like almost everything in dating, or that genetics play a huge role. And then they're quick to point out like, well, actually environment matters. Well, actually, like, your personality matters. Like those, it's like that knee-jerk reaction. And it's because, and it's, you already know these things. You're already aware of the fact that the original general consensus that you had grown up believing was what they currently believe. And so you're tired. You're exhausted. You're like, I know. I know, man. I felt the same way as you at one point in my life, but I was exposed to a new light. I've been enlightened, and I'm trying to enlighten you, brother, but you're stuck. And this is where I'm going to get to Plato. It turns out Plato was also very frustrated by this same thing. Hence, we have the very iconic Plato's Cave. I completely forgot about this, but this is a classic example. So I'll read to you what Google wrote about it. The Plato's Cave backlash, derived from the allegory of the cave. It describes the exact moment an enlightened person returns to the cave to explain reality, only for the prisoners to violently defend the shadows, which was the initial consensus, and mock the truth teller. This is literally a perfect explanation of what's going on. Plato is explaining exactly what I was explaining in that raw video. And it never came to mind to me. It just wasn't in my head at that time. And then I read it. I'm like, oh my God, this is Plato's Cave. That's so funny. But Plato doesn't give a specific word or phrase to the feeling that you get from that. And that's what I was specifically looking for. And it turns out that there is a phrase for it. Google says the most precise term for the specific exhaustion is epistemic wall banging. And yeah, it also lists in the key concepts epistemic inertia fatigue. So the exhaustion of fighting a system or crowd that relies on outdated circular logic. So this is true because we've always said it's true. So yeah, it's pretty close. But epistemic wall banging is the term, apparently. But it doesn't roll off the tongue well. And we don't always need like a word for these things that we put in this retarded dictionary that we've made. It's really just a quick way to convey an idea or a feeling that we'll all understand. So I've decided to relate it more to the Plato's Cave. And I think the phrase we could use is just, okay, like, go back to your cave. Get back in your cave. And I think that works perfectly. I think that's enough. When you're trying to explain something to someone and they're just regurgitating general consensus things and they're not being open-minded to the new ideas, and you're tired, you're exhausted, you say, okay, no problem, man. Like, just go back to your cave. Just go back to your cave, man. It's cool. And, you know, I could see this maybe getting some of you in trouble because someone might latch on to cave and make it into like a racial thing or something. But it works, you know, and only we'll know this. Only us autists will understand the purpose of this, and that's okay. You know, we'll use it inside the community. When you're trying to convey an idea and there's some midwit who's just not taking it, they're not accepting that you have the enlightened point of view, like the caveman who left the cave was enlightened. He saw reality and he compared and contrasted that with the shadows. He had the juxtaposition of both realities, and he went to the caveman inside watching the shadows who were still shackled, and he was like, look, let me explain what I saw. And they just violently defend it. They haven't been exposed to the new idea. They've been closed-minded, but they don't care. They just violently defend it. So yeah, when you're fatigued, when you're tired of these midwits who just don't want to be open-minded to a new enlightenment, and they just keep regurgitating a general consensus or former hypothesis, just say, okay, just get back in your cave. Just go back to your cave. And it just sums it up perfectly. It's just a nice, it's like a nice casual way to articulate it, and it's like a little bit comedic too, you know, a little bit satirical. Doesn't have to be too serious. Rolls off the tongue well. And it's a nice way to just like close it out like that. And it encapsulates everything we just talked about. Just quickly like that. Just go back to your cave, bro. Just go back to your cave. You know, by just saying something effortless like that, you're showing that you understand the situation for what it is. You acknowledge that this is an individual who just does not want to be enlightened. And that's okay. It's okay. Just go back in the cave. Just go back in your cave. It's so funny, though, that Plato is also frustrated by this shit. Never would I have thought that a retard like me would organically start thinking of the same things as Plato, like unprovoked. That is pretty funny. But I don't agree with a lot of things Plato says. That doesn't mean like I love the guy. I disagree with a lot of Plato's things. But I don't think that's an issue with his intelligence at all. Like, I think that's more just he hasn't been exposed to the same data that we've had the luxury of being exposed to. What else was I going to add? Oh, yeah. I just wanted to clarify that just because, you know, I highlight midwit behavior, I'm not saying I'm above midwits. Remember, I'm retarded. But it turns out that retards and highly intellectual people, high IQ, very smart people often come to the same conclusions and behave in very similar ways. And one of those ways is just being very open-minded. The midwit is very closed-minded. But retards, they kind of know, you know, they know to keep their ears open and just listen to new ideas. And the same way that someone who's very, very intelligent kind of knows how much they don't know. You know, there's what you know you don't know, and then there's what you don't know you don't know. Yeah. All right, so go back to your cave.